Wait. So this is Scott Burt and Judy Burt, and we're having a great time interviewing Paul Curcio, the man with he may doesn't like to take a lot of compliments, but most knowledge in Belfast, New York, about our history of Belfast. And we've done a few segments with him, and we're so delighted to be able to record his knowledge for everybody. I'm sure everyone out there is entertained by this, as Judy and I are. So this segment is a little special for me, because I want to ask Paul everything he knows about John L. Sullivan and the Hall of Fame buildings that we have built up over the last few years and taken from rot and disrepair to now internationally known things. So Paul, I'm really anxious to hear everything you can tell me about the Hall of Fame. I'm going to start off by, do you know of, being of your age, which is how old now, Paul?
82.
82. So of your parents or grandparents that may have known Sullivan?
Well, my grandmother, Ethel Lyon, she's from Angelica. That's my mother's mother. And she said when she was a little girl, she said that John L. Sullivan came running up by their farm that was on outside of Angelica. I believe it's on Sand Hill.
That's a bit of a run from Belfast to there.
Yeah. And he went by, and all the farm, they had a farm there in Angelica, the Lyons, and Dan Lyon. And when he came by, the entourage, all of them coming, and a big commotion. So all the farmers and, all the people that were there working in that area and everything, they all left the work and came running over to see John L. Sullivan run by. And that was always a big joke. And my grandmother was about 4 years old then. And she said her father, a bunch that came back there, she said, did he knock you? that was a funny expression.
Yeah.
They all laughed about that. The little 4-year-old girl would ask if John L. Sullivan knocked him out, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess.
And they all laughed about that.
Wow.
Yeah, and another guy that was in town, Bill Sheehan, he said that when he was a kid, I don't know whether he was the one, but they used to go down and see John L. And he said one time, he said that they'd go and he'd call the kids over to pull his boots off. I've told you like that. When they'd pull his boots off, he'd haul off and kick them in the rear. And knock them end over end.
They probably liked it.
This guy thought it was pretty mean of him.
Yeah, right.
He told us he thought it was pretty mean that he did that.
Yeah.
But, it was probably funny to him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I had heard that, maybe you know or don't know, that Sullivan actually was pretty partial to Belfast. Is there some stained glass windows down in the church that he had dedicated? Have you heard anything like that?
No,
okay.
The church burned in 1897, so that was after.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I'd heard something along those lines.
Yeah.
What else can you tell me about him or the building itself? Or you when you were in it when you were a youth?
Of course, what I remember is not related to John L. Sullivan.
That's okay.
But upstairs was a really fancy ring where they used to fight cock, roosters.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they had they had benches upstairs.
Yeah.
And they had an arena.
And
it was really fancy, all carved. And
now, as you look at it, is that the one on the right or the one on the left?
the one on the right.
Yes, that was a little fancier. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we know that there was actually Muldoon was arrested for dog fighting back in the early 1900s.
Oh, Dad said when he was a kid, that was a big thing here.
Yeah,
they all had Airedales.
Yeah.
They used to get them for fighting each other. Nobody thought anything of it.
No, times are different, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Can you remember anything else about the barns?
Let's see. About this same guy telling about Muldoon was
Mm-hmm.
going down to the river when they were building a bridge, and he picked up a 500-pound pile driver. So
Muldoon did?
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah,
And now Muldoon was Sullivan's trainer,
Yeah.
of course, and that's why he brought Sullivan
yeah,
here.
he was a world champion heavyweight wrestler,
Yeah.
and a strong man, and
Oh,
physical
yeah.
fitness guy, and all that stuff.
Uh-huh.
But
I love the story about him running over to Angelica. That was
Yeah.
that's great.
yeah. And let's see, what else was I thinking about?
Are you glad to see, Paul, that it has the Hall of Fame has blossomed into something other than
Oh,
just a
yeah.
rotted building?
Oh yeah. Just
Well,
it's
your
unbelievable.
son Joe has helped me an awful lot with that too.
Yeah, but you're the one that did it. You're the one that moved it and saved it.
Yeah.
It's just and of course we got a lot of publicity all over the world from all that you've done.
Yeah.
Which is
The fighters really like those medallions that say Belfast, New York, and now
Yeah.
we've kind of nicknamed it. Maybe they never thought of it back then. Knuckletown, USA.
Yeah.
That could have been a name that they.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's not as good as Buttsville.
Buttsville, that was pretty good too.
Yeah, the guy, this Butts.
Yeah.
That after they rejected, the people didn't want that name.
Yeah.
It made him mad, and he moved to Cuba.
And he probably tried to name him Cuba Buttsville, and that's no way either.
I don't know, but seeing he was the first one to have a store and
Uh-huh.
everything, and
Yeah.
we figured that
Uh-huh.
And
Do you remember the one? Can you talk a little bit about, to your recollection, the barns were located in behind Muldoon's behind Muldoon's home, one of his many that he called Champion's Rest. And was that knocked down around the 50s? Do you remember?
You mean his house?
Yeah, right in front of where the barns used to
It
be
used to
before
be
we.
a convent.
Yes.
Yeah. I used to go there when I was a kid. We used to go for summer school for the Catholic Church, and by that time, some of the rooms you had to be really careful because you'd fall through the floor. I remember going in there, it was like yeah.
We have pictures of the big wraparound porch
Yeah.
in Muldoon and all the fighters and his entourage sitting
yeah.
on the front of it.
Oh, that's
yeah.
really something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
but we had to move it because it was on Catholic property, and that was something, wasn't it? To have a couple hundred people around there as we craned it down.
Yeah, I've got a video of it. somewhere.
Yeah,
I've never, I've taken video different places that we've gone and never looked at them.
Yeah,
We went back to Italy where my grandparents are from, and I've never seen it.
yeah. Well, we were happy to bring. We know for years the marble statues, both Sullivan and Muldoon. We know the townspeople always wanted them, so we were happy to have them made. We had them made overseas and brought here, so we're happy to. And we're nice to see Belfast being a little renovated now with the combination of what I've done and your son Joe. Belfast is making a bit of a comeback now.
You see what the Amish are you recording this?
Yes, go ahead.
You see what the Mennonites are doing down with the little buildings down on.
Yes.
They're tearing part of it down. They're going to put a big building there to build.
Yeah.
He said Joe and I talked to one of the guys
Yeah.
down there. He said they're going to put in an overhead crane in the building so they can build new structures.
So we're making a comeback. Did there used to be, though, back in the day, someone had said there's something like, of course there's none now, but was there like 4 or 5 car dealerships in Belfast?
Oh, there was at least 2 I remember. There was a Chevy Buick, and then there was another guy, I don't know whether he sold Chryslers, I think.
Yeah.
'Cause,
And this is a town that doesn't even have a traffic light.
no.
Well, what about the Mennonite building? That's where the bar was. I've always heard that story about the bar.
The New Belfast.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I worked for Gallman's years ago, there was an old salesman that came in there. This is about 1960 or 61. He said that if he ever got as close as Hornell, when he was selling stuff for the hardware business, he said he'd always come to Belfast and stay in that New Belfast. That was one of the nicest hotels, plush carpets, really good food, really. He said he'd make a point to come here to stay. because it was such a nice place.
Wow.
Wow.
How about talk about the third floor. The old pictures say show 3 floors. Now for some reason only 2 floors.
You mean the warehouse?
The Mennonite place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what happened there?
Yeah, I think either leaked or what. And when Steinbeiser bought it, he tore that off and put another. Instead of, must have been so bad. I don't remember it.
Yeah.
But it must have been so bad that he figured it was better to tear it off. And
then I just posted a picture the other day of the 1909 fire that burned down that other block there, and now Joe, your son, is purchased the only building that was left standing there, and he told me the other day that when you guys were doing renovation, you could see the char in there.
When I pulled the baseboards off, you could see where it was all burnt.
Now, you at one time, I thought, had told me that there was a fire department on that block. Is that burned down too, or did it come afterwards?
I think that was afterwards.
Do you know why it burned, Paul?
No.
Yeah.
I don't know what caused it.
Devastating, and how it stopped at that one building.
Yeah, they had an awful lot of fires back in those days using wood stoves, coal. They had these old chimneys that weren't probably up to repair, and they overheat and have creosote fires and burn the place.
One thing I personally wanted to ask you is, in that picture, now I grew up in Angelica, but I graduated from Belfast, and in my youth, we used to play in the croquet court.
Yeah.
But in that picture of the burned place, it almost looks like there was a croquet court here.
There was a croquet.
Do you remember it?
No, I don't, but I remember reading the story about it and why it isn't there anymore.
Okay, I'd like to hear that.
Okay. There were a lot of avid croquet players, and
then, to interrupt you, this is setting down on clay with bank boards around it. You play with short mallets, and the balls weigh about a pound, called roque, actually, derived in France. So go ahead.
And so they had a horse. The horses always ran away all the time, it seems like, in the history. There was a runaway where a horse and buggy got loose, and the horses ran around the park and tore the steps right off the Methodist church. And they asked the people playing croquet, the men that were playing croquet, what happened? Did you see what happened? And none of them said. They were so concentrated on the game that none of them even saw it. They didn't pay any attention to it. So they claim that the wives of these men were so upset that they were so obsessed with croquet that they said, "That's it. It's coming out. You're tearing it out." So they made them tear it out. That was a story that's in the paper that I read.
Well, I can remember stories in Angelica of them saying somebody played back in the 1800s, had a heart attack. They just dragged them off to the side and kept playing.
I know.
You played in partners, and it was intense.
Oh, it was really,
They would pick up the ball if they didn't like what somebody did, dirty pool or something, and throw it all the way down South Street. What a game.
I imagine it. Yeah.
Well, that's about 13 minutes on that, so I'm going to pause this video, and we'll come back to another one. So just a second.